Hello, I'm Graham Fitch and I'm coming to you from Steinway Hall in London for Pianist magazine, and I'm going to be looking at the left hand. So I don't need this hand at all for this entire presentation. A lot of people ask me about what they can do to develop their left hand. And it's true that a lot of the time the left hand is the less dominant hand. I don't like to use the word weaker, but a lot of the time it will feel weaker. Just because one hand usually predominates over the other. And interestingly, even in right-handed people, sometimes the left hand is, even in left-handed people, the left hand is weaker at the keyboard, which is a curious fact. But I wonder if that has to do with that we're listening more to the right hand, and the left hand very often is in the background, not in our active listening. So it is an excellent idea to practice not just exercises. I'm going to suggest a couple of exercises. Not just exercises, but also pieces of music that are real music for the left hand. And I'm going to start off with Behrens, who was a German Romantic composer who left us a volume of exercises and studies called The Care of the Left Hand. I like the word care of the left hand. If you open it up, it looks just like any other kind of five-finger exercise patterns. As with any exercise, it's not so much what it says on the page, it's how we do them that matters. We can do them badly and actually have them not help us at all, in fact make us tense and tight and do no good whatsoever, or we can do them well and they can be beneficial to us. So the very first exercise in Behrens, Opus 89, Book 1, is just a bunch of scales, a C major, on different degrees of the scale. D. And then up. I wouldn't get faster, I was just speeding through to save a bit of time. Now that's only beneficial if I'm moving well, and I'm going to just suggest how you might want to move through that. When I play my pinky note, I feel, and there are many different ways of mapping this physically, I feel like my pinky is coming up, and I've got the first part of a wrist circle going on, and then the journey from 1 to 5 is the lower part of the wrist circle. Can you see the hook between the thumb and the 5? So that is controlled by my arm, not by my fingers, by my arm. And I don't know if you can see that rotation after the thumb, well actually on the thumb. I feel a rotation to my third finger. And that's free and loose, and it actually feels really good. And that can be excellent not just as a warm-up, but also as a way of developing the left hand, especially if we listen really hard for control, evenness, regularity. But more valuable is to take it into different keys using the same fingering. I'm now going to try that exercise in D flat. Perhaps a little slower. And there's a lot of value in that because we need to make little adjustments up and down and in and out when we're putting short fingers on black keys, for example. And that feels very different under my hand from the C major. So I would highly recommend, if you're going to do these exercises, there's nothing wrong with doing them if you do them well, to transpose them. Behrens then has a sequence of studies, little studies, and I'll just show you the first part of one in C major, which it's all semiquavers as 16th notes, but it has a little bit more musical interest, a little bit more design going on. See, I can give a little bit more shaping to that and make it sound a little bit more interesting, a little bit more musical. Peaks and troughs, ups and downs. I was looking at this exercise and thinking, well, that's study, and thinking, well, I wonder what else we could do to make studies for our left hand. Then it dawned on me that we might try the Bach cello suites And funnily enough, I'm just now making my own edition of the first suite, the G major, for piano left hand, because this is real music and we can use a little bit of pedal. You know, the cello, the open strings of the cello have resonance, so we can use a little pedal. That's real music, and I need to make it sound amazingly beautiful for it to be acceptable. And it's the sort of thing that cellists work at all their lives to make sound wonderful. So why not experiment with real music that's written for the cello and adapt it for our left hand? That's another idea. But there are plenty of studies written for the left hand, and I particularly like Saint-Saëns' 6 studies for the left hand, and this is opus 135. Let me show you a little bit of number 4 in G minor. It's a bourrée. I'll play just the first part. And so it goes on. I mean, really cute little piece and excellent for the development of the left hand, because again, it's real music, it's not an exercise. Some of you may have heard of Paul Wittgenstein, whose arm was actually, he lost his right arm in the First World War, and a lot of composers wrote great music for piano left hand because of that. He has his own school for the left hand, which you can find on the Petrucci Library, and it features exercises first along the same lines as Behrens, although perhaps a little bit more tricky actually, I found, but also arrangements, transcriptions of well-known music. This probably doesn't need much of an introduction. You recognize that piece of Schumann, the melody of Schumann, transcribed for the left hand. Now, it only works if if you can comfortably manage a tenth. If you can't manage a tenth, don't go near it. But you might find that you can really enjoy the C minor little prelude. I'm going to give you a little taste of that now. You can play that beautifully with the left hand. Again, I'm listening really hard. I'm needing to use my pedal to sustain the long note. So a little pedal at the beginning, and then I can release my pedal. The pedal marks are actually in here. You can also experiment with this. Who would have thought? But again, if that takes a lot of control, physical control, but also listening to make sure that my left hand's really creating the sound that I want. It should sound as good as both hands. I'm going to now just finish up with a couple of suggestions of repertoire pieces that you might want to explore that develop the left. They are both hands. But the left hand is the complex hand. And I'm going to start with a lovely, charming little piece by Reynaldo Hahn called Les Rêveries du Prince Églantine, which features a really soft left hand. This is very much background. Isn't that sweet? You need a very supple wrist for that. So if you can see what I'm doing here, I'm needing to pivot over my thumb. So as a kind of exercise, if you wanted to learn this piece and get comfortable with that movement, Try a little exercise. You can invent it. It doesn't have to be written down at all. All I'm doing is turning over my thumb and using any notes I like around that F. Just improvise. And the rule there is that the elbow stays in one spot and the wrist is really free as I pivot over my thumb. And that will teach my hand the skills for this lovely little piece. I'm going to show you now, just to wrap up. Actually, there's one more after this. This is by Mel Bonis, a female composer, French, late romantic. Actually, she died somewhere in the 1930s. And it's called Phoebe. Very active left hand. I'll see if I can do my page turn. Very active left hand and quite a simple right hand. The right hand's almost got nothing, certainly at the beginning of the piece. And we're all on the black keys, which is a study in itself, how to play softly on the black keys. And so it goes on most beautifully. Highly recommend that piece to you. Just to finish, a composer who's very close to my heart, Frank Bridge, who was Benjamin Britten's teacher, wrote 3 pieces for Douglas Fox, who again lost his right arm during the First World War. And this piece, they're called 3 improvisations. And I'm just going to play you the beginning of At Dawn, which is number 1. Most exquisite. You can really feel the atmosphere, some sort of reveille in the first thing in the morning. You can feel the sadness, the tragedy of this music. Let me just give you a sample of it. Isn't that exquisite? That's highly recommended. 3 pieces by Frank Bridge. That was At Dawn. I haven't got time to show you now, but don't forget about Scriabin's gorgeous Prelude and Nocturne, Opus 9, for piano left hand. Sounds like 2 hands. Hope that's given you a few thoughts about how to develop your left hand, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.